Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. In fact, speaking of which, I think we've already seen a couple countries and states already signing up. My name is Jason Buffington with Veeam. You'll notice that this week my normal host, Dave Russell, is actually visiting Mickey Mouse and his friends. So instead, we have a treat for you. Billy Cashwell, welcome to Industry Insights.
Thanks a lot, Jason. Glad to be here. I am not Dave Russell, but I'm going to fill in as best as I can today.
You have a much better beard than Dave Russell has. And now you are hailing from North Carolina?
Yes, actually, I was just recently with Mickey Mouse where Dave is, but we've just moved to North Carolina, so back home for us.
Nice. And then also our producer is in Georgia. Our social media is in Romania. Montana's in the house. Early morning from Montana, so thank you for joining us. A state almost as big as the great state of Texas, I should point out. Germany is already in. We got some Nordics coming on board as well. Yeah, let's make the world green this morning. So please make sure that you are piling on from wherever you're from. I see India has already chimed in as well. Always glad to see y'all. It's rather late, so thank you for tuning in. So this week we're going to do something a little different. So often our industry insights, we focus specifically on what's going on in the world, what's going on with data, what are those macro trends. But here at Veeam, we're super excited about the most recent release of products that just came out. Billy, you've helmed some of those products, and of course, you and I have both been in industry for a very, very long time. Tell us what the news was of, what broke in GA just several days ago.
Well, I mean, honestly, innovate and iterate. That's our logo here. That's one of our big goals and one of the core values we hold near and dear at Veeam. And the same thing's going on when it comes to the latest releases we've got. So huge expansion out to what we're doing in the cloud. We're doubling down on security even more to keep things safe. We're making sure that you can be abreast of things, report even sooner. And I mean, there's just so much packed into it, but really it's a continuation of what we started with V11.
So V11a, right? That's the official moniker for the product itself. And I think we actually have an overview slide that maybe we can kind of talk to for a few minutes. You said it's iterate, right? So in this case, we added the A on the end. Almost always when we do what we call the minor release, the A that comes afterwards, it's about platform support along the way, right? So let's take a look at the slide that's got all the various platforms and core functions on it, and just kind of walk us through. Well, first of all, what new platforms are out there that we're protecting in the data center, and then we'll get to the cloudy stuff in just a minute.
Yeah, perfect, Jason. So as far as the new platforms we're supporting, everybody knows Windows 21H1 is out there. Windows Server 2022 is out there. You can't go without supporting those things. So we've got lineup support for that. In addition, we've got new platform support. Dare I call it platform, but we've got Red Hat virtualization out there. So we've just opened up a public beta for that that's supported by Veeam, for people to check it out, to see it. If you're going to standardize in Red Hat, it's a great way to check out what we're offering, teaming up with Red Hat on that. In addition, doing even more for Google Cloud Platform. This is the V2 for Google Cloud for us, but we're extending that further. And then finally, one of the big ones here, and one of the words and terms you haven't seen before in our slides, is Kubernetes. So one of the big deals, you guys saw that Veeam picked up Kasten. We've got Kasten by Veeam now. They've got the Kasten K10 product out there. And this allows true container Kubernetes backup, and we're going to integrate that back with Veeam Backup and Replication storage. So it's not just about platform support, Jason. It's truly about the integration that we're seeing across the board also.
That's a great point. Let's talk about, Veeam also just this last month celebrated our 15-year anniversary. Now, as a very minor piece of trivia, even our name really was a harken back to virtualization, VM, right? It's really what we were originally named for. We came out when the whole world was predominantly physical data center centric, and said there is a better way to backup virtualization. So we started with VMware, and then we added Hyper-V. And in fact, on this slide, we can see the third and arguably fourth hypervisors of choice are listed, right? So you have Nutanix in the far right. Red Hat's coming on as our fourth hypervisor. certainly within the modern data center on-prem, everything that's virtualized is covered. You mentioned new platform support like Windows coming out as well. A lot of data centers still have Unix on the floor, right? There are mission critical applications requiring that. Can you walk us through a little bit about what's in the agents as far as what platform support is?
Yeah, great pickup on that. So, in addition to Windows, well, what I mentioned previously, we're bringing out our version 3 of both the agents for IBM AIX and Oracle Solaris. And one of the big things we're really excited about with this release is not just continued support for that. You heard me say V3. We've been supporting these different flavors of Unix, but we're adding them now into what's called our catch-all protection group. And, really the value to the business that you guys in the audience need to remember is that this helps you to ensure that everything everywhere is protected, that you're not missing things, because we all know if you don't back something up, you can't recover it. So now, just like Windows, just like Linux, we're able to detect when brand new systems come in. We've got a group there to automatically apply protection to those and ensure you're not missing anything.
And again, if you think about how many organizations first discovered Veeam, they had something else for backing up the rest of their legacy data center. And then as they embraced modern workloads like virtualization, they would add Veeam to protect those workloads. And then what would historically happen is that one by one, when it came time to renew those other data protection tools, it'd say, this Veeam stuff's working pretty well. Let's start backing up the Windows boxes and the Linux boxes and the Hyper-V boxes. And so we simply just continue to erode the reasons why you would still need anything else there. And I love the fact that often in our story, we start with a purpose-built tool for that workload, right? So our original versions of AIX and Solaris, purpose-built for those Unix admins. Our original solution for the most cloud products, just for those IaaS platforms. And then the next step is to have us receive that as a target. And I think that's where we are by allowing those agents to now pull back. And then I think Red Hat and Nutanix work about the same way. Yes. Any last thoughts from a platform perspective? Because there's this great platform called Mother Earth, and it has been turning green by all the folks at home. Last thoughts on platform support, and then let's go check out the map.
Yeah, the last thought, just to bring things back full circle. I like the way you just went through that, right? You explained we started in virtualization, but Veeam is so much more than that now. That's just where our roots were. Now it's virtual, physical, it's cloud, it's applications, it's containers, and it continues to go. And again, when we talk about innovate and iterate, you're seeing that release after release, and that's exactly what you're seeing on screen here today, Jason. It's a great.
You still think of Veeam as that little virtualization backup company. You just take a screenshot of this slide and then go from there. Speaking of screenshots, let's go check out the map. So we do actually have quite a bit of folks that have piled on. So over in the United States, what do we got? So Montana had already represented. I see Indiana, in the house. I see Ohio, Nevada. I'm going to actually be in Vegas. My first business trip is coming up in just a few weeks. So excited about that. Mexico is in the house. Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've seen them on. That's cool. How about LATAM? Anyone down? There we go.
Look at that.
Anytime that Brazil and Argentina are on, I forget what percentage of the earth turns green when they do that, but it's always great to see both of them light up on one of our calls. So thank you, buenos dias, for this morning's journey. See, we got Germany's in the house. So it's already saw Sweden. Spain's new. Italy, das gut. Czech, probably some of our friends in the Prague office, making sure that we don't tell them about what happens after 11A.
Probably.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got. So how about in South Africa? There you go. Also one of my favorite places to go. And then Mozambique, haven't seen them in a while. That's awesome. Thank you for joining. And we saw Russia and India and Nepal is in the house as well. So fantastic. Thank you. Just let's continue to keep the world moving more and more green as we go. All right, so we've covered the platform style of things. Now, there's a couple things on here that we didn't mention. So CDP, that is not a platform. That's a capability and something that really has kind of helped a lot of organizations reimagine what robust data protection can look like. What's new in CDP for 11A?
Great. So CDP for 11a, and for those of you that do not know or may be new, this is Veeam's continuous data protection. And what we're doing here for V11a is just making it even faster, especially on that initial synchronization where we're set it up to where it takes less resources. But one of the important things is it's also supporting, Jason, even larger transaction logs. So if you think about it, CDP is really for those tier one VMware-based workloads that you're running today, the most important of the important, to ensure that you absolutely reduce your recovery time objectives. You can get it back going really, really fast. And in order to do that, these tier one apps, they get larger and larger when it comes to logs. So just more improvement on performance there. Again, innovate, iterate.
Nice, nice. Now, for a lot of our customers, it's actually not about Veeam Backup and Replication. It's what we call the Veeam Availability Suite, because what we find is that as you mature towards a more modern data protection strategy, the very first thing you got to do is make sure everything's protected, right? So that's why you see the swath of platforms that we continue to expand and iterate on. But after you actually have basic protection, after you're ensured that everything actually is backupable and assuredly recoverable, modern data protection needs to go further than that, right? We need to actually have some intelligence. Correct. What's going on in the environment? How do we keep things healthy? Capacity planning, compliance reporting. There's a lot more that goes into that. So our answer to that is our own native monitoring solution in VeeamON. We got news there as well, right? We always iterate for both.
Yeah, I love how you call out that they are complementary, because once you've got that data protection set up, you're ready for recovery. What's important is that nothing interferes with that. You can look into it, you can plan on that, you can start taking numbers about it. And what we're doing in one, again, very complementary to what you've seen in Veeam Backup and Replication, supporting usually when VBR supports something, VeeamON will turn around and do it. So even better insights into Veeam Backup for Google Cloud Platform. So it's looking at that offering specifically. We talked about ransomware and security. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but we've got a brand new view so that you can help report on the immutability that you're tracking, so that you can, A, be sure that you are still immutable, that you're safe from cyber threats like ransomware, and B, that you can report back to this, because you've got to be able to show these things at some point. We talked about some of the new platform support. So even improved reporting, monitoring for IBM AIX and Oracle Solaris. This is bolstered with even more specific reports for large enterprises to be able to cut through tons of data and make some really quick business decisions. And then again, just like anything else, as part of continuous data protection, the things that VBR starts looking into, VeeamON, that same mantra of innovate and iterate. We continue to add more and more on what we can monitor and what we can report back on every single release.
Love that. I try to describe to people when they think, well, I haven't gotten around to deploying VeeamON yet. I try to describe that as kind of like getting a high performance car and just covering up the dashboard, right? Or the car doesn't come with a dashboard.
I like that.
You have to bolt that on afterwards, right? I mean, you're driving down the road and you're keeping up with traffic. They're not faster than you. You're not faster than them. You're getting where you're going. You can get there, right?
Absolutely.
But I'm telling you, a dashboard's kind of important. You really should have some good instrumentation. And that's really what VeeamON is about, is helping you see that. And again, we made it simple because it's all packaged together, right? So it's not like you're having to go on and buy the dashboard after you bought the car. It's a kit.
That's correct.
Use the whole kit, not just the steering wheel. So that's the VeeamON side of the house. But now we talk a lot about the modern data center. I'm a big fan of the agents and those hypervisors and private cloud on-prem. But certainly we know that almost every organization of almost every size is hybrid and multi-cloud, right? So they're leveraging cloud in a lot of different ways. And especially with moving production workloads up into the cloud, you still got to back those up. Right, so we've got some answers for that. Let's talk about some of the cloud capabilities that are enhanced or new in the 11A generation of products.
Perfect. I think this is probably one of the most exciting things that we've done in quite some time. And you can see the word in lime green here, or light green, a massive new update for the cloud. So we've already talked about adding in things like Google Cloud Platform, but you've seen we've had AWS support, we've had Azure support, we've had Google support. We're doing even more with that now. But now we're getting more into native cloud things and natively protecting these native cloud things. And some of these items could be like Amazon's Elastic File System or Azure SQL databases, that native born to live in Azure SQL database that's out there. Obviously, in order to protect even more things, and as you know, Jason, you talk about people moving applications up to the cloud. Well, we all know that it started with long-term archival, right? And just getting things off site that we needed to keep for a long time, kind of that placement of tape, if you will. And we're continuously continuing to support this in addition with the lower cost archive storage that's out there. So no matter whether you're using Amazon S3 Glacier, you're using Azure Blob Archive, or even now new Google Cloud Archive, we can help cut those storage costs by as much as 50% just by virtue of taking advantage of what that type of cold storage offers. We've talked about security quite a bit. You know, think about the new control mechanisms that are coming into place. I mean, security has really become, it's always been pervasive, but it's front of mind to everybody now, especially with the type of cyber threats we've got out there. So being able to tie in with key management services, Azure Key Vault, and even offer some role-based access control, that's again how we're helping to help you deliver security both in the cloud and in your procedures that you use to protect data. And then finally, I like how you preface this, Jason. You talked about not only is it hybrid, it is hybrid all the way, but it's hybrid and it's multi-cloud. And when you think about multi-cloud, either from your needs as a customer or maybe you've had acquisitions and you end up with different types of technologies, different clouds that you've got, what's important is that you have a single platform with unlimited options to protect all of this. Jason, when you told the Veeam story early on, it was about, hey, you know, I've got some legacy something and then Veeam for virtualization. That world still exists, but that doesn't mean it's easy to manage that way. So being able to have that single solution, that single Veeam platform really makes a huge difference across these disparate amounts of platforms we support and that you guys use today.
So you've covered a lot on that
I did.
slide. Let's go back, and I want to talk about each of them a little bit to make sure I understand some of the pieces that are there. So and we'll start in the upper right-hand corner. We're talking about storage for a minute, and you're right. Most organizations, when they first their first taste of leveraging the cloud as part of their IT strategy was probably not production, right? It was protection. It was maybe I don't want to handle tape. Maybe it was I need data survivability and I don't want to pay for the guy in the white truck to come lose my tapes for me anymore. You know, whatever that happens to be. But it was always about just get your data out of the building. And so talk for a second around how are we continuing to help organizations reduce costs as part of getting your data out of the building? What does that archive storage function, what does that feel like?
Well, I think the big word we need to use here when we're talking about this, or the two words I would use, would be automation and lifecycle management, right? That's really the big thing we're talking about here. We use, I mean, let's be honest, Jason, none of you want to keep data as long as we are required to keep data. It's a lot of costs, it's a lot of housekeeping. And that's one of the reasons why people have turned to this cold storage, if you will, if you want to call it that way. What's really needed here and what's requisite for this all to function smoothly is that you're taking human intervention out of it, for one thing, right? You automate this just in the same way that you would schedule your backup jobs. You schedule how long something stays here on premises on your fast storage, how long something stays in maybe the next tier of cloud storage, and then ultimately how long something lives over in that cold storage for as long as you need to keep it. And the key is that the life cycle of those backups not only are automated, but there's some intelligence in it too. You know, notice I use the words like fast storage, slower storage, archive storage. Knowing how long to keep something on each one is truly important. So I think all of that brings this together and really helps you guys as customers go out there and embrace this as part of your strategy.
Love that. Let's talk about the other end of that. So if if organizations' first foray into cloud services is simply to leverage cloud storage, just to have that data get out of the building, then we talk about, for a lot of organizations, the next step is, hey, I got to protect, say, VMs that are running in IaaS. We have native backup for Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure, Veeam Backup for AWS, and Veeam Backup for Google Cloud Platform. So now we're backing up VMs and whatever might be running inside of those VMs. But eventually, if organizations are going to wholly embrace cloud, they're going to be running apps natively. I kind of think of it, Billy, if you remember back to the old virtual tape libraries, right? VTLs.
Oh, yeah.
You wanted the benefit of disk, but you didn't know how to write to disk. Your old backup software only knew how to write to tape. So you treated a disk like tape, and we call that a virtual tape library. Arguably, for a lot of organizations, when they're first putting applications in the cloud, what they're really doing is they're putting VMs in the cloud, and their apps are still just running inside of a VM. The nirvana state, though, is to have those applications running natively, like Amazon RDS, like Azure SQL, those kinds of workloads. Let's go back to that cloudy capability slide for a second. In that upper left-hand corner, you were talking about what we've been doing to add there, and arguably you get that same kind of flavor as we start to think about what will eventually happen with Kubernetes as well. But talk about what is it that we're actually protecting in EFS, and why should DBAs be excited about what's coming for databases?
Well, I mean, I think that's great. And, we call out the top left, but it really has a dotted line to that lower right one as well.
Sure.
Right. These are, Jason, as you pointed out with the VTL, you did go back to that. I love it. But as you pointed out there, this is just the new things that we're seeing today. This, the innovation, especially with the cloud, when you talk about where we're going to end up or where things are headed, that's not ending anytime soon. So, we talk about getting into more native cloud applications. I love how you use the term native. Because, you're right. You're spot on. It's common for us and for customers to just reinstantiate something physical in virtual form in the cloud, right? That's really common and easy to do. But over time, things begin to be born and live in the cloud. We talk about this elastic file system, being able to get more and understand the underpinnings of that natively versus just extracting the data out, just to have to put it back in. Changes everything from backup time to ease of recovery. And then you talk about DBAs. Well, Azure SQL databases, just like a typical on-premises Microsoft SQL database, typically has a DBA plugged into it, a DBA that's managing it, and for all good reason. What this allows you to do in VBR, and this is where I get to that dotted line of that single platform. It's a single platform to help bring together not only the DBAs, but bring them closer to the people actually managing the backups to build that trust, to ensure that everything can be centralized. Again, Jason, to end up back out to the cloud into that automated data lifecycle that's truly important.
So, and I love that maturation journey. In fact, Veeam in July, August-ish, we published our Veeam Cloud Protection Trends Report. And I think we're going to go ahead and be able to put a URL for that in the chat if you're watching on the sidebars as well. In that Cloud Protection Trends Report, one of the questions that the unbiased research firm actually asked was around what kinds of workloads are running in a cloud. And I was surprised to see there was almost even numbers of organizations that were running databases within VMs, within IaaS, as there were those organizations that were either still spinning up but not yet in production of native workloads. So I'm super excited on that maturation journey, because what it means is that Veeam is ready, right? As you start to launch those production databases in a cloud native format, rest assured that on day one, you're going to be able to protect those as well. Hey, let's go back to the map really quick, and that'll also give folks a chance to go and download that Cloud Protection Trends report along the way. Got a couple more countries. My friends to the north in Canada have piled on. Again, another big old chunk of the earth is green. So a happy good morning to my Canadian friends. New Mexico is in the house. Always like it when New Mexico is there. I've been to Philmont and more times than I care to admit. So that was awesome. Let's see. We got Egypt in the house. Kenya. Kenya is on my bucket list of places to go. So thank you for joining in. And then I think Indonesia. Awesome. Awesome. Let's just keep making the world green. Frankly, the largest area we don't have yet is Aussie. It's like there's no one green down under at 11:25 at night.
It's a little
So
late.
a little late for them. Not enough cuppa. All right, so that gets us through the cloud side of things. There was one more quadrant of that slide that we had. You were just starting to talk about some of the considerations around security, right? Some of the attributes. Now you started with let's get the cloudy capabilities back up again. In that lower left, you were talking about KMS. You were talking about Key Vault. Now that's something that I think a lot of folks may not have as much awareness of, especially if you're relatively new to IaaS hosting. Certainly, role-based access is something that a lot of us know is always the best practice where you have IT infrastructure. Then let's go from that and extend that into addressing some of the other security concerns that Veeam is enabling. Billy, talk to us about KMS and Key Vault. What is it that folks need to be excited about? Why is that so important for organizations today?
Yeah, so I mean, we've talked about standardization, a lot in this call. We haven't said the word, but you've heard that theme come out throughout. And the new standardization is going to be the cloud. We know that's where things are going. That is no secret. As we drive into this standardization, I mean, the cloud is a new construct. Sure, it's storage on someone else's electricity, someone else's cooling, but it is still it's become a new construct as far as all the technology around it that really delivers on how the cloud operates. And some of this, or a good portion of this, like any other operating system or storage system, requires some intelligent way to manage all of the keys, all of the sessions, and really manage that security that's coming in and going out. So what's important is that your applications that work with this natively can go in there and tie into these and work closely with those security systems to ensure that, when we authenticate, when we're in, it's safe, it's secure. Because the last thing you want to do, Jason, is leave the door open for bad actors or people with malicious intent to come in and do something, especially at your key system. That's probably the worst place they could be.
Yeah, speaking of malicious intent, let's go ahead and talk about ransomware, right?
Let's do it.
You can't talk about modernizing data protection without recognizing that a couple key truths that a lot of people need to make sure that they write down and internalize. One, ransomware is a disaster, right? So this is not like I lost a hard drive. This is not like I've had a power failure. This can have cataclysmic results. I think I just blended two words together and it was really bad.
Worked.
All right. So ransomware is a disaster. It's something that you need to be thinking about as a whole scale kind of cyber strategy. The other thing that you have to recognize is that means that backup really has to be the last line of defense in any cybersecurity strategy. It's not just about prevention. It has to be about remediation. Right? And Veeam has been doing this for a long time. And like everything else, we continue to innovate and iterate. Let's talk about those innovates and iterates in 11a as part of ransomware preparedness.
Yeah, so Jason, great point and great place to wrap up, right? Because this is one of the most important things that everybody's focused on right now. We have previously taken a strong stance on this. One of the big things we added with V11 was the ability to effectively have native immutable backups. So as soon as that backup is taken, if you're using the Veeam hardened repository, as soon as that backup is taken, that backup has been made immutable. Now, what's important is we talked about the life cycle with the cloud earlier. We know that your data doesn't live on your fast storage, your expensive storage the whole time. Ultimately, it gets out to that cold storage we talked about. You've got to be able to remain aware of immutability status on premises, in the cloud, and then finally, I say in the cloud, which includes its storage, but really every step of the way, from cradle to grave, if you will. So being able to maintain, generate documentation, and even report on these things or be alarmed to them if something goes wrong is one of the new ways we're innovating with VeeamON as part of the V11a release. So going back to that complementary offering, this is one of the extra values that VeeamON is bringing to the table.
Love that. And actually, that's probably a good segue to promote our Friday session as well. So as far as ransom awareness goes, the next step in that is how do you secure the backups? You talked about immutability being part of it. We talked about key management being part of it. There's a lot to making sure that backup is part of a secure data protection strategy. On Friday, Sam Nichols and David Hill will be walking through that. So you want to make sure to tune in on Friday for that. And then next Monday, Billy, we thank you for your participation, but Dave Russell will be back. And in November, Dave and I are going to be doing a two-part series on November 1st and 15th. All of Veeam is taking the 8th off, so that includes this video team as well. Thank you to the Veeam leadership. But on the 1st and the 15th, Dave and I are going to be doing a two-part series on use it or lose it. We are getting ready for those last dollars that you might still have left in Q4, getting ready for 22 budgets. And there's still some things that you ought to be thinking about for what can you, small things that you can do to fix part of your data protection before we go into the holidays and getting ready for the 2022 year. So come back on Monday for our first of those two use it or lose it sessions. With that, Billy, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing 11A with us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. And on behalf of Veeam, thanks for watching.